Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome you all to Steel Mints Engage, a 5-day webinar series which would cover a broad spectrum of topics ranging from iron ore, coal, scrap, and steel. The idea is to understand the perspective of industry leaders on various topics identified for discussion and enable our clients to have a better understanding on how each sector is likely to pan out in the near future. I am Madhumita Mukherjee, editor Steel Mint, your host for this afternoon. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank our esteemed sponsors for the event, NMDC, Tata Steel, and Rumta Steel. This session is on the changing trade dynamics of the global ferrous scrap market. The total global seaborne trade in ferrous scrap in the first 9 months of CY21 was up 11% year on year to 56 million tons compared to 50.6 million tons in the first 9 months of calendar 2020 as per Steel Mint's data. In the full year of 2020, the total volume was almost 67 million tons, a marginal increase of 1.3% against 65.5 million tons in CY19. However, in a COVID-scarred CY21, plagued by infections, lockdowns, and low steel consumption, imports of ferrous scrap are expected to remain almost flat, provided the first half volumes sustain or increase marginally in the second half. I welcome our esteemed panel of speakers, Mr. Abhijit Mahanta, Head Ferrous, European Metal Recycling, India and Bangladesh, and Mr. Zain Nathani, Director, Nathani Group of Companies and Vice President, BIR, Ferrous Division. Welcome, sirs, once again to Steel Mint Engage. We are truly honored to have you as our speakers this afternoon. But before I go over to the panel discussion, let me introduce Ms. Nishta Mukherjee, my colleague and co-host of this webinar. Ms. Mukherjee is General Manager, Iron Ore and Scrap at Steel Mint. She has 8 years of experience in the iron and steel industry. She holds an MBA degree in Finance and Marketing and Bachelor of Engineering in Electronics. Ms. Mukherjee will make a presentation giving an overview of the global ferrous scrap market. Over to you, Nishta.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Good afternoon, everyone. Please allow me to share my screen. So I hope the presentation is visible to everyone. Changing trade dynamics of global ferrous scrap market. So first, we shall have a quick overview on the seaborne ferrous scrap trade seen in 9 months CY21 versus 9 months CY20. Followed by that, we shall have a quick check on the price trends of key countries. And then we shall have the factors that we need to watch out for the rest of calendar year 21. Talking about the seaborne ferrous scrap trade, we have seen a recovery so far in the 9 months CY21 after the washout seen in the last year because of the pandemic. If we talk about the exporters, all the key exporting countries have seen a sharp recovery in the export shipment volumes, except Japan, which has shown a drop of 15% in its export volumes. Japan's auto output decline has resulted to a drop in scrap export shipments. Japan's factory output in the month of August fell by around 3% on month-on-month basis. And again, the key reason being the drop in auto production. All the key auto players, be it Toyota, Nissan, Honda, registered decline in auto output, which lessened the generation of busheling scrap. And apart from that, the higher freight rates also made Japanese scrap exports less competitive. Taking a quick look at the key importers, so we see all the largely key importers registering an increase in the import volumes in the 9 months 2021 compared to the similar time frame last year. Turkey, world's largest ferrous scrap importer, has witnessed a significant increase of 18% on YOY basis. Vietnam, the emerging economy and the key trendsetter in the Southeast Asian market, has also witnessed an increase in volumes roughly by 8.5%. On the other hand, India has seen a drop in the volumes because of preference to domestic substitutes like scrap and sponge iron. And also the volumes have registered a decline in Bangladesh as well because of the extended lockdowns and the pandemic worries. Talking about the price front, Turkey, the imported scrap prices have already rebounded to a 3-month high last week. And we expect that the prices would increase further to the levels of $495, 500 per ton CFR Turkey levels quite soon, possibly this week. So yes, that's an uptrend that we have seen recently. Talking about the South Asian markets, India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh, which all together account for roughly 25% share in the seaborne ferrous scrap trade, have seen a close follow-up with the Turkish price trend and have witnessed an increment in correlation to the Turkish prices.
Nishta, can I just interrupt you? Your slideshow is not moving, so we're still on the first slide. If you want to just please correct that. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. I hope, is it visible now?
Yes.
So I'll just quickly take you to the slides that I presented previously. Probably due to some technical issue, it wasn't visible. So we had a quick recap of the key exporters, where we saw again the exporters raising their export volumes except Japan. We saw the scrap imports from the key importing nations witnessing an increase from Turkey, Vietnam, and other key countries, except India and Bangladesh. Turkey trends, we have seen that prices have already hit a 3-month high, and there is a strong possibility of further increase in the coming time. South Asian market, which generally accounts for roughly 25% share in the total seaborne ferrous scrap trade, have also witnessed a close correlation with the Turkish price trend and have resulted an uptrend recently. Similarly, if we talk about the Japanese ferrous scrap prices, so prices have hit about 13 years high recently, and this is on the back of good demand in domestic market, tight supplies, and we have seen the export as well as domestic prices increasing quite a bit recently and hitting almost 13 years high. Things to watch out for in the near term. Power crisis, which has been a global concern nowadays, may result in lowering demand of scrap from EF and IF players. China's scrap demand may remain restricted on the steel production curbs. So in mid-September, we saw China reiterating its dual policy, which aims to control both the emissions as well as the intensity. So if we talk about this, then there has been a severe thrust on controlling the emissions as well as the intensity, which incurs the production curbs right from steel mills, coal-fired plants, and the petrochemicals, which altogether account for more than 70% of the carbon emissions from China. So if we talk about the production curbs, then we may see a slight decline in the scrap demand as well. Impact of currency depreciation on scrap imports. Turkey has already seen its currency lira hitting an all-time low. Similarly was the case in Pakistan. So yes, this has also been a matter of concern regarding scrap import volumes, and logistic and trade concerns, which have remained a matter of concern for the transporters and the importers from quite some time. And we expect that probably this may not be resolved in the near short term. So that was all that I had to present from my end. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Nishta. That was a very interesting presentation. And the things that we must watch out for, the power crisis, especially with regard to EAFs and IFs, which are very, very power intensive, China's production cuts, high freight rates. And now I will ask my honored guests to join the panel discussion. We would request each speaker to complete his speech in 5 to 7 minutes, and then we can throw the floor open to questions and answers. Let me introduce Mr. Abhijit Mahanta once again. After 8 years stint with Tata Steel and G. Premji Limited in Bangkok and Egypt, Mr. Mahanta joined European Metal Recycling Limited in 2001 and returned to India to commence EMR's Indian trading operations. He has been instrumental in making EMR a much respected and well-recognized brand in India, supplying a wide range of high-quality ferrous scrap metal to Indian steel makers. EMR is one of the world's leading recycling companies with an annual generation of around 10 million tons, both ferrous and non-ferrous. With 21 years of experience in the international scrap trade, Mr. Mahanta has gained valuable and worldwide insight into the same, with specific focus on the Indian subcontinent. And since the last few years, he has been given additional responsibility of overseeing the Bangladesh market as well. Over to you, Mr. Mahanta.
I think Mr. Mahanta is on mute. I would request, sir, to unmute yourself.
Yeah, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, thanks, Madhavita, for the introduction, and thank you, Nista, for a very crisp presentation. And we look forward to SteelMint nowadays as the presenter of a very, very topical, discussions. And you are actually now the flag bearer of the price trends and on allied activities in India. So thank you once again for inviting me today. I actually do not have much to offer in as a speech, but I will just perhaps talk about the few trends, elaborate on the few trends that Nista had already outlined in her presentation. I think I will just turn it around and the one in her list, the last one, and the logistical challenge, I think that is perhaps the biggest challenge today, which is affecting not only scrap trade, but all other commodity trading worldwide. I mean, it is now the challenge is actually pushing forward the prices. If you have looked at the international developments in last few weeks, you would have probably seen that the US, which is today the world's largest consumer of pretty much everything, is now reeling under shortage of everything, from toilet paper to motor parts, from cars to machines. They have nothing. If you go to US, departmental stores, the shelves are empty. As on date, about 85 container ships are standing in different major US ports and unable to discharge their containers because the containers which are already on the quay have not been lifted yet. There is a major shortage of lorries, shortage of lorry drivers, and it's a complete mess. And the same thing is happening in UK and many other origins as well, to the extent that now yards are beginning to, get material but not able to transfer it out to the end buyers. So I think this logistical challenge of international shipping, both for containers as well as mainly for containers, but I think this is going to spill over to bulk as well. And I do not see it getting resolved before middle of next year. There is no chance of it getting resolved till at least April, May, June next year. And be that as it may, the trade will continue. You can already see the energy crisis. This crisis is driven by two things. Of course, one is the shortage of thermal coal in the power plants, and the other one is the skyrocketing prices of coke, which is now obviously pushing forward prices of sponge iron, pig iron, and therefore pulling scrap prices up as well. And now this is interesting. I do not know when is this coal and coke situation is going to be resolved, or are we going to see any moderation in the prices? But talking to different stakeholders today, I understand that Indian coke prices, the landing, not the landing, sorry, the Indian coke prices ex plant, which is today perhaps around $600, is still not, what it should be. It is cheaper than what it should be if you look at the coking coal prices, which is around $450. And there is a thumb rule in the industry that the coke price should be about 1.65 times of the coking coal prices, landed coking coal prices. And that means the coking coal price should be today upward of $700 ex plant, ex works. That is not happening. So there is definitely another $100 price rise that can be factored. And if that happens, then you can figure out where the sponge iron and pig iron prices are going to be. So and already, as you can see, the coal supply to the sponge iron plants are severely getting restricted, and the power plants are getting the chunk of coal from Coal India. So this shortage and the pricing and logistical challenges all are now getting mixed up, and all these three factors are leading one to another. So in the next quarter, and you add up the winter shortages, the further logistical challenges, which normally happens in the winter for scrap movement, and you can very well figure out where these prices are going to be. It's all going north now. How far and how long, that is something that I cannot really hazard a guess. In terms of appetite, yes, appetite in Bangladesh, in Pakistan are coming back. Bangladesh has just increased their river prices yesterday, day before yesterday, almost 2,500 to 3,000 taka. They had to, of course. And now all of a sudden you will see, everybody jumping into the import freight. The problem with Bangladeshi buyers will be that all the Dhaka-based buyers, there are about 20 odd importers. They are all container importers. And in next 3 months, I think container imports are going to be majorly hit by these logistical challenges. So the bulk buyers obviously will have to turn more and more towards the bulk. And I foresee a bulk freight also strengthening in next quarter, because once the container shipments fall short, then the bulk, ship owners will definitely push up freights again. And in any case, the winter freights go up because of the US Gulf movements. Chinese scrap import have fallen perhaps, but contrary to last year's belief, China has not turned out to be really an influencing player in the international scrap market. They were only buying P&S and some top-notch grades, which are really minuscule part of the international world trade, scrap trade. So I think Vietnam, Japanese domestic scrap prices, the pent-up demand which is getting created in the US, again on the back of the logistical challenges and supply shortage, is all going to, I think, increase more and more demand for steel in next quarter at least. And definitely is going to have a good effect on the scrap prices. That's my time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mahanta. Very nice, interesting once again. You said that logistical challenge is the greatest challenge as of now, and you do not know when this is going to be resolved. Like you're saying that April to June, you're looking at some kind of resolution April to June. Then, of course, the energy crisis, coke and thermal coal prices have hit through the roof. And again, there is no clarity on when these prices are going to moderate. In winter, logistical challenges are going to hit us even further, and prices are going to skyrocket further. Thank you so much. And our second speaker is Mr. Nathani, a well-known expert in the recycling industry, both in India and abroad. Mr. Nathani is currently the managing director of the Nathani Group based in Mumbai, which is one of the oldest and largest Indian companies involved in the ferrous scrap business. Mr. Nathani is also on the board of directors of the Material Recycling Association of India and vice president, Ferrous Board, Bureau of International Recycling. The screen is all yours, Mr. Nathani. Please go ahead.
Sure. Thank you, Madhumita, for having me, and very insightful views from both Nishta and Abhijit. I mean, they've covered most of the points. Just to add on what they were saying, I think no one can doubt is that we're on a very strong bull commodity run at the moment. It's all commodities, all metals, ferrous, non-ferrous, everything is trajectories upwards. In the short term, I don't see this changing. I'm completely concurrent with Abhijit's views. At some point, we will see a correction. That's how markets work. We've seen that over a number of years. But right now, in the short term, every key indicator out there, every key factor out there just shows that this ferrous scrap market globally is short on scrap. That's my view and my reading on it. Demand right now, currently as things stand, is more than what large sellers like EMR, SIM, Schnitzer can even supply. We're seeing Southeast Asia in the last few weeks come back very strongly in the scrap market. Vietnam was shut for a number of months due to COVID-related factors in June, July, August. Their industry and their economy is now kicking off in October. And I think from the US West Coast, at least, almost all majority of bulk cargoes and all majority of scrap sales have gone into Vietnam and Southeast Asia for November and December. So you're seeing pent-up demand in these markets. Abhijit very well explained and covered the whole logistic challenges. We do a lot of bulk cargoes into Bangladesh, and we're seeing the same challenges continuing even today. Bulk freight has reached record highs. I remember pre-COVID, bulk freight to ship from USA to Bangladesh used to be range bound between $35 to $40. In the month of, I think it was July, August, it had reached $105 per ton, and now it's come down to about $97, $98, $100 range even today. So that's extremely, extremely high bulk freight. It's all a freight game at the moment, and it's very challenging for the end consumers as well, whether they're in India or Pakistan or Bangladesh. I mean, from their perspective, to constantly being charged higher freight than other markets is something which is difficult. And I think the only way they can secure their raw material is by willing to pay these large numbers. For some reason, all the bulk vessel operators just are not very keen to head into South Asia at the moment. And I say South Asia and markets like Bangladesh predominantly, whether it's due to waiting or extra demurrage or delays in discharge at Chittagong, they're preferring to go to other markets. And therefore, I completely agree with Abhijit that bulk freight can go even higher as we head into the last few months of this year. I think all other points we spoke about, China also. I definitely feel the production cuts, new restrictions in China, they're going to have an impact. There's no doubt about it. You're seeing large quantities of Turkish billet and Turkish rebar being exported to Asia. You're seeing Vietnam export large quantities of their billets into China. You're seeing India export large quantities of our billets into China. So this post-COVID game has completely changed, and it's impacting the steel markets, the scrap markets in very, very diverse ways that I don't think any of us really expected 18 months ago how this would play out. But we're in the middle of it right now, and there's no doubt that we're on a very strong bull run. And I see, I see that it could be more upside left. A Bangladesh mill was just joking with me yesterday, saying, you should offer at $600 CFR into Bangladesh. Why you all are not offering 600 yet? And in all seriousness, I mean, we could be there in the next few months. Who knows? In the next few weeks, we're already seeing very large numbers being paid by Southeast Asia. And as I said, because of the additional freight to offer to countries like Bangladesh, we could be at even higher numbers than what sales have been done. And I am concerned for these markets exactly for the reasons that Abhijit mentioned. I don't know how those Dhaka mills are going to be covering their scrap in containers. There's going to be a big shortage. We're already seeing a big shortage of bulk vessels and availability of the same. So all in all, it's a very strange dynamic to the market. At one end, you have the bull run with high commodity pricing, and then you have all these challenges mixed in, whether it's logistic, freight, currency depreciation, whether it's China and their restrictions, whether it's markets like Vietnam coming out strongly and buying, almost all the material in the last few weeks. So those are my opening comments, and would be happy to take any more questions from the panelists or the audience.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Thani. You're saying that demand is more than supply at present, and against the backdrop of skyrocketing freight and commodity prices. I would like to initiate the Q&A. My first question is on the demand for ferrous scrap. How do you see the impact of the global power and energy crisis on demand for ferrous scrap? Mr. Mahanta, if you would take the question. I mean, scrap is mainly consumed by the electric arc furnaces, which are very, very power intensive. So what do you foresee? And also with Southeast Asia opening up and coming back strongly, especially Vietnam.
I personally do not really think that the power crisis is going to reduce the scrap demand any which way. If you look at the import statistics, India is not going to remain a bigger importer, and perhaps its import will reduce more now that recycling units are back online and more recycling activities begin. Bangladesh, Southeast Asia, they are all melting happily. In fact, they do not have enough scrap to melt, like Jain pointed out. Bangladesh guys, they just increased their billet and rebar prices, a couple of days back. They are back in the market looking for more and more cargo. Pakistani mills are buying. Yes, power shortage will continue, but power shortage will not be allowed to be continued by the government because this is a commodity which is a political hot potato. So I'm sure government will ensure that the industries get power and the coal allocations accordingly will be made. But it is going to probably cost more and more. Already I have seen that government has allowed Indian power makers to import a certain percentage of their coal, which they had not agreed to earlier. Now, if you mix imported coal with domestic coal, whatever is supplied by Coal India, your power which is going to increase. Already, I heard, I cannot verify this. I heard that the cost of power by the thermal mills were hitting 12 rupees and up, and while they were supplying probably at 7 to 8 rupees to different users. So I think. And government is also stopping the auction of power in the grid. So my reading is that in India, at least, I think power is going to be costlier. Like we have seen petrol and diesel, it will become costlier. We have to accept that and move on. I don't think power shortage will really stop melting or stop the furnaces from operating, but power will become expensive. It will have to be factored in. Probably it will result in higher prices of the finished products, but then we have to accept and move on.
Okay, so the next question, Mr. Nathani, how do you see the global scrap supplies for the rest of
Nisha, sorry, I think your internet wasn't very clear. I couldn't hear you. Please, can you just repeat that?
Yeah. So how do you see the scrap supplies for the rest of CY21, especially from US point of view?
So, our opinion is quite clear. We see this market short on scrap, as I've already mentioned earlier in my opening remarks, especially from the US. You talk to any US recycler today, they will tell you that their yard inflows are not as strong as they should have been. Given it's only October, you've not really gone into the winter months yet. Their scrap supplies and the inflows are not as good, and a couple of reasons for that, right? I think Abhijit touched on it also. Auto production is down. The second-hand car market in the US is very, very strong. Generally, those second-hand cars would come to recycling yards, but today, given that auto production is down, given that somebody wants to buy a car, they're not getting the new car, therefore they're buying a second-hand car. Those second-hand cars would otherwise come for scrapping. So this is just a whole cycle that's taking place, in the value chain and in the supply chain that's happening. So the US market is facing a lot of headwinds at the moment. The logistic challenge is obvious. I think you mentioned there's some 80 odd vessels lying outside the ports of California waiting to be discharged. There are freight challenges. There's not enough inflows coming in, and there's very strong demand. There's no doubt about it. Today, the US is exporting, of course, to Turkey, but they have a lot of other markets where they can sell their scrap to, whether it's in Mexico, whether it's in Peru, whether it's in other markets in South America as well. West Coast material goes to all these other markets. And then you have countries like Vietnam coming back so strongly with pent-up demand. Then you have Bangladesh, who's constantly in the market looking for material, and one of the biggest suppliers is the US West Coast. Japan, let's keep in mind that Japan, which was supplying large amounts of these small bulk cargoes to Bangladesh and India in the last 8-9 months, has hardly done any shipments. So at the end of the day, if you're a consumer in a country like Bangladesh looking for material, where do you go? You're predominantly looking to the US, or maybe you're looking to Australia or New Zealand, along the global scrap supply chain. So all sort of indicators, I repeat, point to a very strong market. I see short on scrap, and I think this is going to put a lot of pressure on the US market. Of course, I see they'll continue to be one of the largest exporters to Asia, but the prices are going to be strong. And whichever market sort of pays the highest price today, that's the one that's going to be able to secure their cargo. The smart and intelligent customers today that I know and I'm talking to, they're already trying to book December shipments in the month of October. That's not common. That's not rare. That's not the way the world has been working for the last many years. But buyers want to secure their material today. Buyers want to just secure their tonnages today. What that tells me is that the market is going to remain strong. So it's going to be short, and prices are going to be continuing this uptrend.
Right. I have a question for Mr. Mahanta. How do you see the impact of the currency depreciation, Mr. Mahanta, in some of the countries like India, Turkey, Pakistan, and others, impacting the global scrap market, especially with the Turkish lira hitting a record low and Turkey being such a high-profile consumer?
Anumita, I have been tracking the currencies, but what I can see is that the depreciation in currency, if you look at the percentage, was probably is much lower than the appreciation in the prices, if you look at over a period of 2 months or 3 months. So I don't think the currency depreciation is going to really hold them back from importing, because they are making much more money in making steel and catering to the domestic as well as export demands. And that's my take.
Right.
India is slightly more price sensitive because India has substitutes. For the countries which do not have substitutes, they do not have substitutes. They have to import, be whatever is the price. And therefore, the currency depreciation can delay the purchase, but it cannot stop a purchase. Right. That is my take. And I wanted to raise 2 more points, not necessarily for currency only, but I thought I missed out. You asked about the electricity cost. I think Nista or you were asked. I think, with the higher electricity cost, you will see a more demand for prime grades of scrap, because if you have higher electricity costs, you would like to import and melt, better quality scrap to conserve as much as you can. Already in Europe and to an extent in US as well, shredded is in much shorter supply. Shredded demand is far higher than what we can cater. So shredded, you can see the differential in premium in a market like Bangladesh, for example, in container trade. Till last year, the premiums were about $15. Today, between HMS and shredded, the premiums are $45 to $50. So you can see how, and bushelings, bundles, all these, premium material, they have all crossed $130, $140 premium over shredded. So this is something I could never foresee 2 years back. So that is number one. Number two, when we talk about the post-COVID scenario, I do not really think that we are out of it yet. We are still in COVID, and we may deny it, but we are still continuing to live with COVID. Last week only, UK was reporting 44,000 new cases a day. Russia has gone past 33,000 cases a day. In fact, last week, Russia recorded the highest daily fatalities since COVID began. So Singapore is in bad shape. They are having 3,500, 4,000, 5,000 cases a day in a small country like Singapore. So I don't think COVID is really, gone. Therefore, I see more interruptions going forward. It may not last for 3, 4, 5, 6 months, but there could be, lockdowns in different markets, and that is also going to affect the global demand and supply.
Thank you. Nishta, you have a question?
Yes, Mr. Nathani, we have seen the we have seen the US steel prices outperforming compared to the other regions. So is it because of the increased scrap purchases at higher rates, or some other factors that are driving that as well?
I think it's a combination of both, Nishta. Of course, it is the higher scrap prices. I mean, it's a chicken and egg. You can say that the scrap prices are going up because rebar prices are going up, or you can say the vice versa. But there's no doubt that the demand is very strong. You look at hot roll coils, you look at flats in the US, and I was informed by one very large manufacturer out there that the lead time for new deliveries for plates and for HRC is almost, you're talking about 6 months. If somebody wants to book new production today, they're waiting for six months to get coils at a nominal price. Therefore, the steel mills realize that, okay, if you want delivery shorter, if you want it in 4 weeks or 6 weeks or 8 weeks, here's my price. Either you pay it or you don't. So demand has come back strongly in markets like the US. Maybe scrap has followed, or because scrap is high, they've increased their prices even further, as I said. But there's no doubting that demand is very strong in the US. It's come back extremely strongly. I think that's going to be continuing. I don't see that changing in the short term. We're very clear that, our view is that this is a bull run that's on. I'm trying to, as we discuss even now, I'm trying to understand and hear from all of you all, what are the factors that can change this today? And everything that you're saying, everything that Abhijit's saying, everything that I'm listening to, there's no real key indicator and factor that says this market is suddenly going to, collapse either due to lack of demand or prices are going to come down. I think Abhijit raised two very interesting points just now. One is on these disruptions. Yes, India is going through, touch wood, a pretty good time today with less lockdowns and everything opening up. But you can't completely rule out these mini lockdowns and disruptions going forward, not only in India, but across the country and across the world. That will cause more logistical disruptions and challenges. That can easily happen. And second, he's absolutely spot on this spread of pricing that he mentioned. We've never seen spreads like this before. The shred to HMS pricing, busheling to shred pricing. It is very, very strange. There is a strong demand for high grades, for premium grades, for prime grades of scrap. And that's causing pricing to remain high as well in markets like the US, in markets like Japan, in markets like Vietnam.
Thank you so much, sir. Just a follow-up question on that. In the opening remarks, you had mentioned that how the freight rates for the bulk vessels have risen drastically from US to Bangladesh. Any light you would like to throw on the container rates as well, sir?
I mean, container rates, Abhijit will give you more exact details. I know that they are also very, very high right now. I think more than the container rates, if you ask me, the problem is container availability. That is the bigger issue. In bulk, at least you can get a vessel today. It's a matter of paying a price. But what we're experiencing on the container front is rollovers, shipping lines canceling bookings, shipping line rolling over and splitting bookings, and it's becoming a logistical challenge to deal with that. So finding containers is more of an issue than rates. On the actual rates, of course, they've gone up. Maybe Abhijit can share a little more details on what the current container rates are into Bangladesh from Europe and other markets.
I have a question for Mr. Mahanta. I mean, Mr. Nathani and Mr. Mahanta both have been speaking about the wide spreads. I had something related to this, like the spread between HMS and shredded has widened since April this year from $20 to $25 to $35 to $40 currently. Would you like to throw some light on this, and how long do you think will this continue? Mr. Mahanta, would you like to take this question?
Two things have happened. As I said, to save on power, the mills prefer melting better grades. Mm-hmm. Of course, the better grades also, have a direct impact on your chemistry. And in an induction furnace, you know very well the better you feed, the better you get. So they do not have an option. In a market like Bangladesh, for example, there are mills which produce better quality grades with low phos and low sulfur. That is how they differentiate, and they get a premium in the finished product. And that is also the requirement of many of the government projects. And to do that, they have to import these better grades. And that is number one. Number two is that the better grades demand increased immediately after China started importing, because they were only importing P&S and Bushelling. And where would they get it from? They were mainly getting it from Japan, HCS and Shindachi. Now, Japan has gone through a massive change, like Jain pointed out, for last 8-9 months. Japan is pretty much absent from export to Southeast Asia. Japan was catering to nearly 20% of Bangladesh import in last 2 years, and this year is almost next to nothing this year for last 7-8 months. And along with that, their car productions have dwindled, and that was aided by the chip shortages. So there is massive demand, and then there is also a major shortage. Both these things have expanded the gap for bushellings and those kind of granules. The shredded production has come down in Europe because the material that go into shred is what? About 40, 45, 50%. We put about 50% perhaps of auto bodies, which keeps the material clean and the chemistry is clean and nice. With the shortage of autos, like Jain pointed out, then your feed is falling down. And the cost of production in shredding is increasing because once you have a lower feed, you are not able to keep all the shredders running, then your cost of production for shredding is increasing. That means a shredder would like to ask for that kind of a higher premium, which many people are not either able to or willing to pay. So, today we are in a situation where we are producing less of shredded with much higher demand. So every month, you can see the premium sort of going up and up. You look at the bulk shipments, recent bulk shipments to Bangladesh, for example, the shredded premiums, not only Bangladesh, Turkey, for example, Turkey was always paying $5 premium for shredded, perhaps same or another $5 per bonus. That was the kind of thumb rule. Today, both in Bangladesh and Turkey, I have seen sales where the shredded and HMS spread is $20. So that is in a very, very established market. In containers, like I said, it is anywhere between $45 to $50, depending on how really desperate you are to buy that grade. So that is not going to fall easily because I don't see, at least in Europe, the shredded production becoming much higher.
We are running short on time. Actually, I have just one question, and which is open to both. Any significant market shift in global scrap that you want to highlight, possibly on China's active resumption of scrap import this year? Very quick. Either of you can take this.
I mean, I think the global, I don't think China is having as much impact on the scrap market like we all expected. But I think there's definitely a global shift. And that global shift is a lot to do with COVID-related reasons. Economies are coming back. Governments are pumping a lot of, new money into their markets and their economies, and leading to a lot of infrastructure booms and a lot of steel demand and a lot of scrap demand. And as more and more, challenges, as more and more markets open up and economies open up at different parts as impacted by COVID, you're going to see this. You're going to see these ups and downs and these sharper ups and, maybe a little sharper downs. And right now we are on a very strong bull run, and I don't see any major change happening in the short term. I would, my only guidance on that to any mills or any buyers is look to cover your raw material because this market is short on ferrous scrap in the foreseeable future.
Thank you. Mr. Mahanta, would you like to add anything to that?
No, I'm fine. I think between me and Jain, I would like to say we cover from A to Z, everything on scrap. But I think we have pretty much covered everything. Like you said, the market is going to remain red hot and like the Mumbai weather, you say. And I think, like you said, people are, buying scrap 2-3 months in advance. And that is a sign that things are going to remain tight.
We had a question on poll, but I think that has, from the audience that is, but I think that has already been answered. I'm afraid we are really, really tight on time. And if somebody from the audience has any question, he or she can write to us directly and we would get the questions answered. I'm afraid we have to bring the webinar to a close. And I hope everyone enjoyed this session. Again, a big thank you to our speakers and viewers for joining in. And I would also like to extend our gratitude to our sponsors, NMDC, Tata Steel, and Rungta Steel for all their support. We also thank the Indian Steel Association and Steel Users Federation of India for their valuable support.